Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2026 mod career mode. This is round number 4 today for the Spanish Grand Prix, and if you guys did miss the previous one, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. The best race we've had of the season so far, an early Abu Dhabi race, and we really showed the pace of this car, and I feel like going into this episode is time to fully realise that pace and maybe go for our first race win of the season, because we had a bit of a slow getaway in that last Grand Prix, having qualified lower down, having to make quite a few moves early on in the race, and then ultimately left with a bit of a sour taste in the mouth as there was some controversy involving a safety car in Abu Dhabi. It was an illegal overtake. And still now, I am going to hark on about this illegal overtake till you're absolutely bored about it. But yeah, getting illegally overtaken and then having to change plan because our tyres were absolutely woeful with the internal carcass temperature going off the chart. So making a late free pit stop under a second safety car and managing to catch back up to third place to ultimately get our first podium of the season and to get back into the top 5 of the Drivers' Championship. Still a big gulf then to the two McLaren boys, the constructors. I think 54 points is it in the Constructors' Championship, so they're 1-2 in the championship. Liam Lawson, the more junior man, leading the way, but Piastri has just got his first win of the season and he's not been off the podium, so pretty ominous consistency from the reigning world champion from last season, but we're heating up a little bit. Gasly had a bit of a slower race because he had a mechanical issue in the middle of that one, so that's also a stark reminder that we still have reliability and maybe gremlins in the engine to try and solve, and we're now getting on towards finishing the upgrades in-game with the pending chassis upgrade and a fuel efficiency upgrade and a couple of durability upgrades, so hopefully that will jump us forward in the R&D chart in the races to come. And then of course there's still the actual build your own engine mod hurdles that we've got, which include even further fuel efficiency and more MGUK power. But when it comes to the in-game R&D and upgrading, you can see we're making steady progress, continuing that trajectory from Abu Dhabi into Catalonia. We're as close as we ever have been, maybe since the end of last season, to McLaren and Red Bull. Mercedes and Aston Martin trying to follow us along. And then look at the bottom, we saw Alfa Romeo Haas make some big upgrades last episode. Well, now it's Audi Sport's turn, and they've leapfrogged Alfa Romeo Haas and are very close actually to the top pack there. So Audi, using all their technical knowledge, may be on the path to upgrading enough to maybe get some consistent points. We're going to have to see how their performance goes this race weekend, but it's good to see finally more than one of those bottom teams really making use of the R&D that they surely saved a lot of in the last season. But for us, we now want to make the most of the upgraded car we've got. We showed some great pace around Abu Dhabi. It's now time to, well, hopefully get a decent enough qualifying. No, I'm not talking like a pole position, because I've never been a great qualifier, I will fully admit. But last episode was frustrating. That was my bad, thinking we had enough time on the board to get through into the top 10 shootout. It wasn't. This time we won't make that mistake, and then hopefully in the race we can use clearly the race pace that is there with this Lamborghini engine as well. But at the moment, Red Bull on top, but the two Ferraris, Verstappen and Schumacher, 2 and 3 in Q1. So Ferrari, even though they haven't actually technically brought an upgrade, maybe this circuit's just going to suit their car a lot better, and they might be looking to jumpstart their season in this episode. For us, we're just looking to now get through into Q3, and we very comfortably get through. But Oscar Piastri, 3.5 tenths ahead of everyone else in P1 there. That's a bit worrying. Ferrari, Schumacher knocked out, but Verstappen now getting to grips with his red machine into the top 10 shootout. That's good to see for them, and usual suspects are the two Alpines through and the two Red Bulls, of course, as well. But can anyone topple Piastri? It was 2 poles for Gasly in the first 2 rounds, then it was a front row lockout for McLaren. Now, in these first laps, Gasly goes provisional pole, Piastri second, Weir third, Alonso in his home race, first home race for racing for Red Bull in fourth. Russell does well to be P5. What can we do on this second flyer? It's a green first sector. Marginal gains made in the second sector to just go over 2.5 tenths maybe, looking to maybe find some more time in the last sector, but through this right-hander consistently, the AI able to pull a bit of time, but then on the exit, as we go go through this very rapid double right-hander through final corner. We're going to maintain that advantage of about 2.2 tenths to improve our time. Unfortunately, though, Piastri and Gasly going so quick, it wasn't enough. You know, if I gained maybe half a tenth more, I maybe could have made it a front row lockout, but unfortunately we just couldn't. So we're on the second row, but that's still very decent, and it's a third pole in 4 races for Pierre Gasly. Just call him Mr. Saturday. He's the new Mr. Saturday. Gasly, honestly, he's frighteningly quick over 1 lap when he wants to be in our car, but I have a good feeling about this one. I feel up for this after all the overtaking we did in Abu Dhabi. You know, feeling finally confident with this car, you know. I think we could be in for a really good fight with our own teammate for the race win, and hopefully that won't include holding each other up enough where other teams get in the middle of it. We need to play it smart because I still want to play the team game as the team owner, but I want that first win. It's been long overdue. I think we're ready for it today. Let's go to the grid for the Spanish Grand Prix. It's a little bit doom and gloom here in Catalonia. Let's hope that is not going to reflect in the race we have today. From the second row, surely it can't be. I think we're going to have a great chance. It's a long run to turn 1, so slipstream effect. We could have a chance of even getting into P1 by this corner. There is no rain forecast. I did double check that because it is very, very overcast, but I assume it'll just be getting sunnier as we go on through this race. But yeah, the McLaren pace looked pretty damn good in Abu Dhabi. The same can't be said here in over 1 lap, at least for Liam Lawson, who does suffer a little bit and is outside the top 5. But Piastri, as he has been all season, is just there. So let's try and see if we can ruffle some feathers there. I'm sure Fernando Alonso behind us will also be going at full tilt in his home Grand Prix. But we line up directly behind our teammate Pierre Gasly, the man with 3 pole positions out of 4 races, 1 race win to his name. Can we add to the tally here for the team? We've got 1 podium. Can we add another? And even more so, can we add our own race win? Let's find out as we get ready to go to 5 red lights for the Spanish Grand Prix. The European portion of the season is underway. It's a bit of a mediocre start for Gasly. It's a slow one for Piastri as well. We go through into first even before we even start thinking about braking for turn 1. What a getaway that has been, and unlike in Las Vegas, there's no immediate drop of the stomach of a gear jamming, and we're into first. Gasly manages to wrestle back into P2 after being under massive pressure from Piastri. So it's a 1-2 for our AAR Lamborghini team, and Piastri continuing to actually be under pressure from other cars then as Fernando Alonso, the Spaniard, dances his way around the outside, the Red Bull Ford, into 3rd place. Meanwhile, Lawson down in P8 and the other McLaren Lando in P6. So differences between the 2 different teammates and team sets, and Theo Porcher, the improved Audi Sports, in the top 10 already on lap 2. So Audi's upgrades clearly working as we look to try and defend against Alonso and Gasly. We go to the inside looking to try and block Fernando, but in the end of it, I'm surprised to see both cars actually shoot past me. We get a little bit of a brake check from Alonso and Gasly, having to lift off just not to make contact as the car behind. But annoyingly, in a flash, we've gone from 1st to 3rd. I thought I chose correctly defending the inside line, but I actually compromised myself, I feel, because it just tightened up that exit. And Alonso and Gasly were so committed, to my surprise, so they both managed to overtake us. So we need to re-engage with this. Meanwhile, Piastri is continuing just to feel pressure from cars behind him. It doesn't look like he's looking so great, and Lawson actually is overtaking some people. So it looks like Piastri and Lawson might meet each other at some point in this race, as Piastri is now being attacked by Lando Norris, and there might be a copycat move for Lando. He's seen his teammate do it, and he's done it himself. It's literally the same overtake. Lando up into P4. Yeah, very big difference to Abu Dhabi. McLaren, not a lot of great race pace early on with the heavy fuel here around Catalonia. Maybe the colder conditions hurting them slightly, I don't know. But at the moment, the pecking order stays the same in the top 3. But Piastri coming back at Lando Norris. The Red Bull defends ferociously to the inside. And meanwhile, look at that gaggle of cars there. Lawson battling Russell. Porcher gets ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. It's the Audi sports car improved for this race in the points. legitimately at this point, because it's too early in the race for something to have happened. Pourchaire just really just gunned it, really, on the soft tyres and making the most of that. He has to, actually, really looking at it, because he's one of very few people on the soft, so he needs to make the most of this first stint. And meanwhile, you've got some big names fighting for, well, no points, just the wooden spoon outside the top 10. Leclerc, Verstappen, Ocon, Schumacher, and Sainz all line astern in various different cars, as myself and Gasly continue to pile on the pressure to Fernando Alonso, who leads his home race. He's going to be absolutely thrilled with this, but he's got a long way to go. Gasly just can't make a move there into turn 1. Alonso holds his line, and on lap 6, I've had enough of sitting behind Gasly. I gave him the benefit of the doubt, thinking that maybe he might be quick enough to overtake Alonso and we could follow him through. Instead, I've overtaken him, and I feel like it's going to be on me to maybe overtake Fernando Alonso. But as we go through turn 3, Gasly comes back at us. I think he's using a bit more battery than me through that exit. We're going to squeeze him to the inside, and we have to jockey for position and ultimately lose a little bit of time to Fernando as we go outside of 1 second. So we need to try and dig deep and get within DRS to not let the Red Bull run away with this, as Alonso, I think, really could do, drawing energy from the fans as well to try and take his first win of the season for his new Red Bull team. But here's a replay on that same lap where I was overtaking Gasly. We see Lando Norris being overtaken by the Mercedes. So whilst one Red Bull looking pretty damn hot, the other one not so much, gone from attacking Piastri to now being overtaken by the Mercedes. Fighting going on behind again for Théo Pourchaire, and I think that's Ricciardo in the Alpine for that P8 to P9 spot, and Leclerc just sneaking in up behind them. And meanwhile, we've got Verstappen just ahead of Schumacher, but Schumacher putting on the pressure to the Dutchman. Again, Schumacher looking quite comfy in the Ferrari, maybe compared to Verstappen, as we now go back to the live action, and this fight between the Red Bull and the Mercedes continues. And behind them, fighting going on between Pourchaire and Liam Lawson, this is. So Pourchaire in the Audi has just gone and overtaken one of the McLarens, the dominant McLaren. So what is going on with the McLaren pace? At least for Lawson, it's really horrible. For Piastri, not too bad, still hanging on to P4, so that's very, very interesting. And then for us, look at this straight line speed from this Lamborghini engine. Oh, that is what you love to see. We were so far back, but a bit of battery use, DRS aided, and we're able to power past Fernando Alonso. But equally, he's going to be in our DRS now. We're going to have to do some defending, but it's good to know that very much so our engine is working well, and that engine power is not a problem for us. Really, maybe it's going to be some of the corners potentially, because when you get to a maxed out car with the My Team Career Mode car, in very weird ways, the car doesn't feel that great. I've always said this, and I think lots of people will agree. A lot of the time, the My Team car feels better when you're playing like Season 1, Season 2 of the game. And when you get to these later seasons, it can feel like a bit of a weird handful in the corners. So, maybe that'll be the difference. But I'm hoping that means that our engine can overpower any deficit we have in the corners and the feeling of the car as we continue to watch just this action-packed Spanish Grand Prix, fighting going left and right all the way down through the field. Ocon and Sainz for P13 and 14, that was, as Alonso continues to pile on the pressure, and we have cracked a little bit because I was defending the inside and I was so desperate to get to the inside apex I've overshot the corner, and Alonso simply switchbacked us from right to left. So Alonso, with all his experience in Formula 1, using it to the max to get back into first place. But as long as we stay within DRS, I feel comfortable that we can just re-overtake him, because this straight line speed is so great. I don't even have to use battery here, and we're going to shoot past him. I mean, the DRS is quite powerful on this circuit, on this game as well, so it's not just totally about the engine we've got. But yeah, feeling comfy, and Gasly sticking there. I think, at some point, could we try and orchestrate a 1-2 to feel a bit more comfortable in ourselves as a team, as we now watch Russell and Norris once again fighting. These two have been swapping left, right, and Russell gets ahead this time, and Gasly has just dive bombed Fernando Alonso at the end of Sector 1. Where did that come from? I didn't think Gasly was near enough to make a move, but he's gone for it, and he's got second place for it, as we see again Sainz and Ocon fighting for P13 and 14. It's Audi versus Alpine, and behind Albon watches on, and it's a similar sort of fight to the one they had where Ocon gets down the inside there, as it's the two Ferraris and Leclerc now knocking on the door of the top 10, and then knocking on the door of Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson just going backwards in this race, and soon enough he might be out of the points because Verstappen overtakes him and Schumacher overtakes Leclerc, and I feel like Schumacher might go go and overtake the McLaren. The Ferraris are heating up in this race, ironically, in a race that's probably pretty cold with the overcast conditions, as Ocon has to defend against Albon as Sainz nips away a little bit. So we are seeing some improvements from quite a few different cars. The Audi, the Ferrari getting a bit better in this race. Meanwhile, down below, we haven't seen too much of them in this series so far because they've been stone dead last, and R&D, Gulf Williams and Andretti just make up the numbers at the back. Really hoping at some point they can maybe get some upgrades, but of course, you know, for Andretti, that's how it should be. They're a new team in Formula 1, so the game's given us a very realistic outlook maybe of how they would do in 2026. Meanwhile, maybe a little less unrealistic is Fernando Alonso in a Red Bull in 2026, but here he is going around the outside as we defend and try to maintain first place for as long as we can. We're just trying to get to that pit stop, to be honest, getting to the hard tyres, and then I'm actually hoping we can maybe pull away and just control the entire race. I would not mind a bit of a dull second stint, to be honest, just to try and book in this win. That would be exciting in itself for me. Oh, God! Piastri's just crashed into Gasly. A very slow crash, an incident. Piastri gets it all misjudged, and he's pulled up alongside the circuit. He's retiring. He's gone from never being off the podium, having just won the last race, to a DNF, a very shocking DNF, out of nowhere on the rear end of our teammate. Not the first time that corner has caused incident. Remember, I think 2 seasons ago, we did kind of have a bit of a crash with Verstappen and Leclerc, I think it was, at the time, in the Red Bull and Ferrari in season 2 at that very corner where there was a dive bomb and a bit of a misjudge on the corner. So Piastri's fallen foul of that. So it's now Norris up to P4 then in that train of Russell and Ricciardo, and we continue to just keep on swapping positions with Fernando Alonso as we squeeze him to the inside. He's got DRS, of course, so we are a bit of a sitting duck, but on this occasion we do enough to stay ahead at the brake zone, and all the while Gasly sits there, maybe just protecting his tyres, and might be in a good spot to jump Alonso, I'm hoping, maybe just before the first round of pit stops, as we see now Leclerc into the top 10. The two Leclerc, I spoke too soon, and Leclerc makes a mistake, and he's now out of it, and Lawson's back in, and the two Alfa Romeo Haas cars swapping positions, and Felipe Drugovich, ooh, nice little move round the outside. Is that the changing of the guard at Alfa Romeo Haas? Felipe Drugovich, the younger driver, F2 driver in this game originally, overtakes Valtteri Bottas to lead the Alfa Romeo Haas team P15, but they're going to need a bit more of a crazy race to score points here today. But 2 Ferraris in the points. You've got an Audi in the points. It's looking like a very interesting top 10. It's still a very interesting top fight here, but my tyres are starting to scream out. You can see a lot of having to do a lot of corrections there through that right-hander, turning left into a right-hander, and that's my cue to come in. I think just like in Abu Dhabi, this time maybe the rear tyres are screaming out a little bit. I haven't checked the tyre temps, to be fair. I probably should have in hindsight, just to see and kind of compare notes to Abu Dhabi, but I just thought that point in the race, it's time to come in. Let's get that undercut going on the hards. And kind of, you know, if Alonso and Gasly now keep on fighting each other for even a lap or 2, that's going to just give us breathing room. So this is how we're going to go about maybe controlling this race, is in this pocket of clean air I've got behind Lawson, ahead of Pourchaire. We're just going to zoom as much as we can on this outlap on the hard tyres and try and get that gap, as we now see fighting going on between Schumacher overtaking Tsunoda, this is, and they both come out ahead of Pourchaire, who just made his first pit stop. I think Schumacher has also made his first pit stop. So I think Schumacher's actually done a blinder here. I think he's got a mental undercut. Talk about an undercut and a half there. I think Schumacher's leapfrogged about 3-4 cars there with an early stop. Verstappen's yet to stop, and he's being held up now with this fight between Russell and Ricciardo. So all 3 of these guys basically fighting for who can go slower on the mediums. The same for Norris, and Alonso and Gasly continue on. I think there's a huge undercut to be had if you look at Schumacher, and that's going to really help out for us then. So yeah, good to see that, and that's probably going to work out for us as Alonso re-overtakes Gasly, and those two will just lose time to each other. And how times change. From one race, literally one race ago, I had no hope of catching Lawson and either McLaren in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Now, I'm catching Lawson, and I've made a pit stop. Lawson's yet to pit. I've pit, and I've caught him back up. Incredible scenes here at Catalonia, but just shows over the course of this season, it's really going to come down to track-to-track dependency and making the most of difficult circuits, and then also, you know, really delivering the result you should be doing when your car is going well at a circuit where it suits, as we set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix as Alonso and Gasly are in, and we are miles ahead of them. This strategy has worked for us, and it has for Mick Schumacher as well, who's up to P6 now. As Alonso exits in P2, he's jumped Gasly in the pits. Schumacher's up to P4, and he's on mediums, and I think he's going to the end. What an incredible undercut for Schumacher. He's got ahead of Norris, Leclerc, Sainz, Russell, Ocon. What's happened to Russell, Ocon, Ricciardo? The two Alpines and the Mercedes of Russell, they were firmly in the top 10, and now they're way down the order. Pourchaire's down in P19. Something's gone on here that we've missed, and we're going to have to look at a replay, because now it's the Audi of Sainz who is in the points. So he was out the points before the first round of pit stop. So very strangely, it's the Spaniard now who's the Audi in the points, and he's fighting Leclerc, which is the other Mercedes. So basically, they've all swapped positions. All the teammates who are outside the top 10 are now inside the top 10, and vice versa. Apart from Schumacher, who just went from P9, already in the points, up to P4. Incredible stuff for the Ferrari team, at least on the German side of the garage, whereas Verstappen's caught up in this battle of, you know, six cars fighting from P6 down to P11. This is manic. And look at that, Sainz and Leclerc, the two former Ferrari teammates, now driving for two German manufacturers side by side through the entirety of Sector 3. And meanwhile, Fernando Alonso and Gasly continue to fight. Alonso gets the better of Gasly. I think Gasly actually had got ahead at that point, but Gasly's moving all about from left to right. What a dive bomb this could be. Gasly on the inside. This is going to be incredible if he pulls it off, and I think he may just do. No, Alonso comes back at him. This is unbelievable racing around Catalunya. This is turning out to be the best race of the season so far. And there's been some absolute corkers so far, but lots of fighting going up and down the grid. I think it's going to make this a contender for race of the season so far. And meanwhile, Schumacher in acres of room in P4, Norris the same in P5, and then this big train of Leclerc down to even his teammate Russell, who's now climbed up to P11. So they're starting to come back, but Liam Lawson down in P15. Oh, that's a shocker for McLaren. DNF for Piastri, and Lawson is just so slow that he's outside the top 10. It's a day to forget for McLaren. It's a day to forget for Théo Pourchaire. He was doing so well. He should be in the points in the Audi, but he's actually hit the back of, I think, one of the Red Bulls. I think it was Lando coming out the pits. So Pourchaire had to make an extra pit stop. That's why he's down in P18, because right there he crashes into Lando at turn 1. And for Russell, well, I don't actually know what happens to Russell. He just looks a bit slow coming out the pits. The carbon fiber flying was from Pourchaire's car, but out the pits on cold, hard tyres, I think he's going to get, absolutely trounced by Verstappen in the Ferrari, who dives down the inside. The Aston dives down the inside. Jesus. Okay, maybe the Mercedes tyre warm-up is just horrendous on the hards. I don't know. Maybe the overcast conditions not helping that situation, but that's why Russell fell out of the points. He, one, just pit too late, and then two, was so bad on his hards out the pits, whereas Leclerc making overtakes on that stricken Pourchaire with the broken front wing. So back to the live action then. Lap 20, 13 laps to go. We are 6.8 seconds ahead of this battle for P2 between Fernando Alonso and our teammate Gasly. These guys have been swapping like this every single lap pretty much. They're so closely matched. Gasly once again makes it a 1-2 for this team, but for how much longer? Probably literally one lap and it'll be swapped around the other way. But all this fighting is helping us, just giving us breathing room. We're just controlling the pace. We're not wearing the tyres out too much. You know, keeping a 6-second gap would be pretty decent, I think, all the way to the end of the Grand Prix. Meanwhile, fighting continues to go on inside the top 10. This is Sainz being overtaken by Leclerc. The Audi improving this race, but just not enough to keep the Mercedes at bay potentially. And now he's going to get dive bombed by Ocon. So it's all unraveling a little bit for Audi. They still have work to do, clearly, with their car. And he might have Verstappen for company soon enough in P10. But I'm still flummoxed by Schumacher, to be honest. in P4. How is he actually undercut that much? That's incredible, as Gasly sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, which could be a concern for me, but Alonso overtakes him whilst he sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, which is a bit weird to think about, but the gap is still 6.5, so this is actually going to maybe turn out to be one of the best races we've had all game in terms of the level of control and dominance we have, as it's 3 wide. It's Ferrari v Mercedes v Audi. Incredible. Oh my God. Verstappen, is he going to go for the double pass? I think he has. He's done it. That's the Verstappen of old. That's the Verstappen we know from real life. He's up into P8. What a battle that was between 3 big titans of the car motor industry. And Audi and Mercedes are still fighting. Sainz on the inside of Leclerc. And Leclerc has been held up so much by Sainz that now Russell's caught back up to them. And meanwhile, it's still Drugovich ahead of Bottas, and Lawson in the McLaren is behind both Alfa Romeo Haas cars, just showing how poor the race pace is for McLaren. Maybe it was a good thing Piastri DNF, because it would have been quite embarrassing if Piastri fell away as well. What on earth is going on with McLaren? Very, very questionable stuff here, and like we see in real life a few times, big head scratcher for McLaren of what's happened to their car from one race to the other. They did have a few moments like that last season, of course, where they would have some great pace, but then some really torrid luck. I guess this is less luck and more kind of just outright pace, because, yeah, Piastri got unlucky, but Lawson has not had an issue this race that I know about on team radio at least as well, so that's going to be one to ponder. But Alonso, as you saw there, gets back ahead of Gasly. I think those two are literally going to be swapping all the way to the last lap, and one pair that will swap here now is Ocon and Albon, the Alpine going for the move on the Aston Martin, and meanwhile Sainz re-overtakes Verstappen. The Audi is pushed away from the 2 Mercs and has actually gone and got that place back to get a good P8. Meanwhile, back in our world, lap 24, things are going so beautifully for us. Maybe too beautifully, because there's an engine icon in yellow, and that's never a good thing, and the car starts to slow down, and I've lost control of the car. The game's taken over control, and it's a mechanical failure from the lead. I can't believe it. I can't. Our fuel pump's gone. I think that's our fuel pump. Oh my God. Every time from a lead of a race, there's been far too many times. I have had so much pain in F1 career modes in the last 2 years. From the lead to a DNF. We retire the car, and we're going to have to wait and see who wins from Fernando Alonso or Pierre Gasly.
A real team effort then, which has paid off in spades. A great victory here at the Spanish Grand Prix. So Natalie, what do you think helped them deliver this result?
I really feel the track layout combined with the track temperatures we saw today suited their car. These cars come alive when the tyres are just at the right temperature, and the driver did a great job managing that as well. They just look so comfortable out there. It's like anything, it always looks so easy when it all just clicks.
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everybody at the team.
Well, it's a 4th different winner in 4 races in 2026. Fernando Alonso wins his home Grand Prix for Red Bull Ford. Gasly 2nd. Lando Norris gets a 3rd after my DNF there. Just wow. I mean, it could have been a Schumacher 3rd place, obviously, because Schumacher was ahead of Lando, but at some point, obviously, in this race, Lando's gone and overtaken the Ferrari, but I think the Ferrari's still gone on for a pretty decent top 4 finish. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty damn pissed off right now with that DNF. There's nothing you can do about it. That was a in-game DNF. From like just the RNG of like a mechanical failure. So I literally, restarting that race, I would have had the failure. It literally can't do anything about that. So it is what it is. It's more painful. It came from a race lead where I was basically dominating the entire race. That's painful, but I can still take enjoyment from Mick Schumacher getting a P4 in the Ferrari. Incredible stuff, because both McLarens didn't score. Piastri DNF'd and Lawson out the points, I think, or I think he maybe got 2 points by the end of that race. Fernando Alonso comes away from the Spanish Grand Prix leading the Drivers' Championship. The Spanish fans are going to be going absolutely bonkers around Catalonia today. Gasly sits in 4th place. We are now down to 7th, 34 points off Alonso. It's still early days, so I'm not going to focus too much on the points gap there. We'll just have to move on and go again next race at the Monaco GP, where qualifying's crucial, and I've not been qualifying too well, so we need to sort that out for next episode. But what a cruel mistress Formula 1 can be, but that is the sport we all love. It can be a very, very harsh sport, and it is not fair, it is not just, and things just happen that are just out of your control sometimes. That is frustrating, but nonetheless, it was a really, really entertaining Spanish Grand Prix. So if you did enjoy it, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, guys. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.